Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective, and today will be no different. I'm Dr. Bobby Price, and today we're going to talk about iron deficiency. Now, you may be thinking out there, iron deficiency, this is just a conversation for women, because that's the assumption that anemia is quite often found in women. Well, 25% of the worldwide population is actually deficient in iron. It is the number one deficiency in the world, okay? And what's really important to understand about deficiencies are what lead to dis-ease in the body, okay? I'm going to explain that as we go through today's video, but it's really important to understand the key sort of initiator to most dis-eases is first deficiency and then toxicity. We're going to focus on deficiency today, but it's really important to understand that even for men, how these symptoms show up are very different from how they show up for women. So a man and a woman who has iron deficiency, they're going to experience very different symptoms. And for many men, they don't even notice the symptoms. So this is why this is not just an important conversation for women. This is an important conversation for everybody. As I said, this is the number one deficiency in the world, and 25% of the population is actually deficient in iron. And the worst part about that is the over-the-counter treatments and even the pharmaceutical treatments aren't very effective, okay? And let me explain why I say that. I cannot tell you how many people have come to me who started out with simple anemia and were taking that typical supplement that they get over the counter that the doctor told them to take, and then they went from that to something from over the counter to now prescription, and then they escalated and eventually went to transfusions, blood transfusions, okay, and injections of iron as well too. So this is really important to understand that for the most part, a lot of the what we would call modern medicine treatments, they're not very effective. A lot of people not only do not get a therapeutic response from the treatments, a lot of people actually experience a lot of constipation as well too from those treatments as well too. So I'm going to educate you today and help you understand what the cause of iron deficiency is, okay? What the causes of iron deficiency is. And I think that's the really important thing, because this is the conversation that never gets addressed. So you end up taking those over-the-counter supplements that are making you constipated. You end up taking prescriptions that never really relieve you of the anemia. You end up taking injections of iron that never really helps the issue, solve the issue. And then you ultimately end up taking, having to have blood transfusions, and that's what you don't want, okay? So I'm going to help you look at what the causes are, so then you can look at which of these causes could possibly be the trigger for you specifically, okay? And it could be a number of these when you think about it, all right? But before we get into that, let me first say, let's talk about what the functions of iron is, because a lot of people don't understand what the functions of iron is, okay? When they think about iron, they just think about, hey, I'm low in iron, I'm low in the mineral, okay? But iron is very important for hemoglobin production, okay? And hemoglobin is what sits at the center of your red blood cell, okay? Inside of the center of that hemoglobin is where your iron sits, and it attaches to oxygen, okay? So that's what makes it very, very critical and important, because we cannot go very long without oxygen, okay? And I'm not just saying oxygen to the lungs, I'm saying none of our tissues can go very long without oxygen. As a matter of fact, the longer a tissue goes without oxygen, you start to notice that tissue becomes, it goes from necrosis, okay, so hypoxia, not having enough oxygen, and then that tissue begins to die and necrotize, okay, and then eventually that tissue will turn gangrene, okay? This is exactly what happens with a lot of diabetics, unfortunately. All of that sugar is essentially suffocating their tissues and their blood cells, okay? Iron is also very important because it helps with the production of red blood cells as well too. So making your blood, the red blood cells, okay, it's important for that as well too. Iron is also very important because again, it transports oxygen, okay? Not only, it starts in your lungs, okay? So that's where the oxygen is actually attached to the red blood cells that are actually oxygen deprived, and then goes out to everywhere in your body, including your brain, including the tips of your toes, okay? Iron is also very important for our immune system. It is actually important for activating certain immune cells like macrophages, like neutrophils, T cells. It also inhibits the growth of both bacteria and viruses. So iron plays a very key role in our immune system, okay? This is why you see people who have, low iron, they're also prone to infection as well too, all right? So a lot of times people are wondering why they're always getting a cold, or they're always getting sick, or they always got the sniffles. It could be because you're low in iron, and this is how it shows up a lot of times in men, okay? Iron is also, a fact about iron. Iron is stored in the liver as ferritin. So a lot of times when you go into the doctor, you'll first notice that you have low iron levels, but then all of a sudden your doctor will tell you that you have low ferritin levels, okay? All right, so ferritin is the form of iron stored in the liver, okay? It could be because you have an unhealthy liver. If your liver is unhealthy, okay, then and inflamed, it won't perform the function of storing iron. So you'll probably be losing a lot of your iron as well too. So that can actually lead to iron deficiency as well when you have an unhealthy liver, okay? Because it's stored, again, as ferritin and also transferrin. All right, so if you have an unhealthy liver saturated with toxins, okay, saturated with inflammation, saturated with fat, you have a fatty liver, you won't be able to properly store the iron so that when you need it, it's released, okay? So that's really a vital function of the liver as well too, and how iron plays a role in storing in the liver so it can be released when needed, okay? Iron is also very important for sleep. It supports women during pregnancy. So a woman who is anemic or deficient in iron, it could cause issues during pregnancy. And it's also very important for the synthesis of certain hormones as well too. So iron is critical. So when you have a iron deficiency, it's something that you need to address, okay? But to properly address it, you got to know what the cause is. You cannot just address it by putting iron in the system because, and this is for another video, so I'll do another video about this. Most of the iron that you're getting, it comes from rocks, okay? So that's the unfortunate thing. Most of the iron that you get over the counter and places like that is literally synthetic iron. It comes from rocks. Our bodies aren't even used to processing that type of iron because we don't eat rocks. And so it's just really important to understand that, you gotta know the cause if you want to fix this issue. If you want to fix any issue, you got to know what the cause is for you, okay? And there are many causes. And so I'm gonna go over those today, and then hopefully you'll have a little bit more of a grasp on how you can address this problem, and how you move forward with making sure, like, this is how actually the idea of how you address any deficiency, okay? Figuring out what the problem is. Okay. Now, before we get started, understand that this is not medical advice. This is a holistic approach to understanding, how we address causes, not symptoms. Okay. If you want to address your symptoms, please go to your doctor. If you have issues that are very complicated, and most people's issues are very complicated, you need a doctor to help you, okay? You just need to get the right doctor for you. All right, and what I mean by that is, again, most people don't have one deficiency. Most people have multiple deficiencies, okay? Which means that there are multiple different causes, all right? So just really important to understand that, all right? So first cause, okay? The first cause is that the soil is deficient in iron, okay? Most of the foods that people are eating today come from monocropped, pesticide, herbicide, and insecticide laden soils that are depleted of all nutrients. And the unfortunate thing, because I am a farmer and I own a farm, what I understand is most farmers are using just NPK, okay? That's what they're putting in their soil as a fertilizer, okay? NPK is just 3 minerals, okay? And the unfortunate thing about using NPK is that there are so many other things that are needed in the soil. And most of that fertilizer is very acidic as well too, laden with ammonia, all right? But at the end of the day, the way that people farm today, monocropping and stripping the land of all the goodness, because your food is deficient, you're going to be deficient. And so this is why my food list is very specific, because if you eat a standard American diet and you're eating these standard vegetables and fruits, most of them are monocrop. And because they are monocrop, they are deficient. Okay, so again, a lot of people will ask, well, why do I grow what I grow on my farm? And why do we have all the fruits at iHeartFruitBox.com? Why are all of them different than what you typically would see at a grocery store? Even our bananas, not the same, okay? Things that you typically see in a grocery store, not the same at all, is because, you know, you typically see this, you know, the typical Cavendish banana in the grocery store, whereas with us, you'll see baby bananas and burro bananas. Again, we grow our bananas, okay? And we're putting so much natural compost on it and feeding the soil. So again, I can dive into that all day, but number one, the soil is deficient. So of course, you're gonna be deficient in it, okay? And it's not just iron, it's multiple deficiencies, all right? Number two, low stomach acid, okay? Your stomach acid is too low, you don't have enough. And that comes from eating a very poor diet, all right? And when you have low stomach acid, or overeating will cause low stomach acid as well too, or taking, you know, antacids will lower stomach. There's many things that will lower stomach acid, but when your stomach acid is low, it won't properly break down the food. So even if you do have iron in the food, it won't be released. Thereby, you can't absorb it. Okay, so a lot of people have low stomach acid. I have a whole video dedicated to low stomach acid. So just do a quick search on, you know, low stomach acid, and I go into detail about that. But low stomach acid is a number one cause for a lot of people. Okay, and that creates multiple deficiencies, not just iron, even B12 deficiency as well too, which is a whole nother video. All right, number two, chronic inflammation. Your body is chronically inflamed, meaning it's always inflamed. Okay, this inflammation can come from infections, and sometimes you don't even know you got the infection. It's a low-grade infection. It can come from autoimmune conditions like lupus and MS and Hashimoto's and rheumatoid arthritis and so forth and so on. These conditions like autoimmunity create chronic inflammation in the body as well too. Diabetes, okay, diabetes, you consume a lot of sugar and you have an issue with processing sugar, which is diabetes, then you're going to have chronic inflammation in your body, because that's what sugar does. It inflames the body, it inflames the blood vessels, okay? And so diabetes as well too. Cancer, of course, is an inflammatory condition and lives off of inflammation, and then stress, okay? So chronic inflammation will lead to you being depleted of iron as well too, all right? Because iron is, I won't even go into it, but iron is used during inflammation, okay? So that's really important. Number three, specifically for the ladies, excessive menstruation, okay? And I have to have this conversation, you know, during my talks with women all the time, because we've established what is a new norm, air quotes. And the new norm is that people believe that you're supposed to have a period that is 7 or 8 days. And I'll tell you, not because I said so, but if you go look back historically, a period of 7 or 8 days is not normal, okay? It's not healthy, okay? That means you're hemorrhaging to some degree, you're bleeding out. And so One of the things that is the proof in the pudding, and please comment below if you've done my detox, and after the detox you notice that your period was 6 days and now it's 3 days, or it was 7 or 8 days and now it's 3 or 4 days. That's the proof in the pudding, okay? That first of all was that heavy menstruation was your body trying to relieve toxicity, and then you did a detox that removed all this toxicity. You ate how I suggest to eat during my detox, and as a result, quite often, not only do you correct the excessive menstruation, but sometimes you'll notice even your iron levels improve as well too, because a lot of the iron is being lost due to the heavy bleeding during your period. Okay, so cutting down the menstruation days and how heavy your period is will actually allow you to keep a lot of your iron as well too. So that's very, very important for the ladies, okay? Especially our young ladies, because we want to catch this early in life. We don't want to wait until they're in their 20s and their 30s and finally start addressing this issue, because now it's a compounding issue that has been happening for decades, all right? Number 4, gut dysbiosis or malabsorption, okay? Gut dysbiosis just simply means that the gut bacteria inside of your gut is unhealthy and imbalanced, and you have malabsorption issues, meaning even if you consume the right amount of iron and the right kind of iron, your body doesn't have the ability to properly absorb the iron into the system to be actually used. So gut dysbiosis usually leads to malabsorption on top of the inflammation that quite often is compounded with these issues when you have gut dysbiosis. So that is also a leading cause as well too, gut dysbiosis. So you got to get the gut in order. I have videos on that as well too, so you can check that out. Number 5, antibiotics. Antibiotics, because antibiotics not only kill the bad bacteria, but they also kill the good bacteria, which is what I just talked about with gut dysbiosis. So antibiotics can create gut dysbiosis. Okay, they not only can create gut dysbiosis, but they can also cause dysbiosis in the vaginal canal as well too, because you have a microbiome as a woman in your vaginal canal as well too, and it disturbs that and throws the pH off and throws the bacteria off. And this is not only can most women know that if you take antibiotics, it can lead to a yeast infection, but again, it also disturbs that microbiome as well too, okay? And this could lead to iron deficiency as well too, all right? Number 6, parasites, okay? Parasites are just what they sound like. They feed off of you. And one of the things they overconsume is iron, okay? So a lot of your iron deficiency could be coming from the fact that you have a lot of parasites in your body that you're not aware about. And so those parasites can come from salmon, for instance. Salmon is one of the biggest sort of culprits of creating parasites, okay? And then the ingestion of parasites. And a lot of people love salmon. But if you go and look at bears in the northeast of the US or bears in Alaska, and you see them on the rivers, just do a quick Google search. Bears, parasites, and you will see this bear walking with this long white parasite hanging out of the back of it. And it's because those bears consume the salmon, okay? And when they consume the salmon, they consume the parasites, and they end up inside of the bears. We just don't have that long string of a parasite hanging out of us, because in addition to the salmon, the bear is consuming a lot of fiber in the things that it eats as well too, so it's coming out, all right? So parasites. Number 7, yeast. And I kind of talked about that with the antibiotics, because a course of antibiotics can lead to a yeast infection, but also your diet, okay? Consuming a diet high in yeast, consuming a diet that actually feeds yeast and makes it overgrow in the body as well too. And so a lot of people are struggling with yeast, and yeast unfortunately has, put it like this, yeast shows up in many ways in the body. It can show up again in your toenail, that brown toenail, that's a fungal infection, that's yeast. It can show up between your toes, and that's athlete's feet. It can show up in your groin, and that's a jock itch. It can show up in the vaginal canal, and that's a vaginal yeast infection. It can show up in the scalp, and we're itching our scalp. That's yeast as well too. So It can show up on your tongue. You stick your tongue out and you have that white coating on it. That's yeast as well too. So it shows up. We just don't pay attention to the signs. And so if your iron levels are low, it could be because you have a candida overgrowth in the body as well too. Again, people who have done my detox, they'll know part of the detox is a parasite candida cleanse to get rid of the candida, the parasites, and also clean up the liver in the process as well too, which is hugely important. All right, so those are your typical causes of iron deficiency. And so what you need to do is go through and look, where am I consistent in the area where maybe I got gut dysbiosis, maybe I have, low stomach acid, and look at those signs and symptoms by checking out my other video, chronic inflammation, signs of parasites and yeast, all of these things. I just took a course of antibiotics. I eat a lot of food that is, conventionally grown. These are the typical signs or causes that will lead to iron deficiency. So I hope this has been helpful. Please share this video with other people because, as I said before, it is the #1 deficiency in the world, and it's not just for women, it's also for men too, okay? Hugely important because men, it can actually show up in the blood, and circulation issues, and we got circulation issues, we know that could lead to ED as well too. So that's a very convoluted cycle in terms of how we get there. But again, the signs and symptoms for men and women are going to be very different. All right, so please share the video, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace and blessings and Godspeed.